My name is Wigow and I work at Sweco Architects. What is, I mean, now when most of the Hamburg Sjöstad project is finished, I mean, there's still parts to be built, but it's been quite a huge success. People really like to live there. There's a lot of children's families that moved in. That wasn't anticipated, but it's been very popular. And something that has been a success as well is that they have managed to give city qualities to this area. It's a lot of shops, a lot of restaurants, and they are actually functioning. This has also been something that the individual builders didn't want all these shops in their basement because they thought no one will use them, no one will hire them, so all the other people living in it will have problems with these. But actually they have been proven wrong. Most of them at least has been let, and it's functioning very well. So you have this sort of lively city quality-like life in Hamburg Sjöstad project, besides this nice area with the water and the parks and everything. So you have this combination of living central in a city-like situation and also with the greenery and the water. That is one of the main qualities of Stockholm as a whole. There are very few one-room flats actually, so you hardly not find them at all in Hamburg Sjöstad project. A typical one-bedroom flat, one-bedroom flat, is, I would say, 55 to 65 square meters, somewhere there. And then you have a two-bedroom flat, that is from 75 to 85 square meters, and the three-bedroom flat from 80 to 100, maybe 110 as well. And then you have larger with the three or four bedroom, 120, perhaps 140. There are a few really large flats in Hamburg Sjöstad, but not so many. There's also a tradition, I think, that we are planning from inside out, very much so in Sweden. So we start with trying to make good flats with good qualities for the people who's going to live there, and then we're going to the outside. So we don't start with a facade. I think that we want it to look like this, and then we try to squeeze something within that facade. I think we start more from the inside going out. In this case, in Hamburg Sjöstad project, that has been quite governed by Jan Inge, the planning architecture, the sort of the overall architecture, the overall character. So he has sort of, in more or less apparent way, governed the projects in a certain direction, you could say. So the clients and the architects, you can see that there are individual projects, but there is some sort of an overall layout or design that can be said to be Hamburg Sjöstad design, perhaps. Sustainability or the environmental issue in this project has been important, but that has not influenced so much the individual buildings. It's more on the planning stage. So it's very good public transport. It's the waste disposal system is very efficient and environmentally viable and correct, and it's planned for not so much private car use. This was actually a problem because I think they planned it for just 0.3 car space per flat, which is very low, and that has presented a problem. People really have more cars than that, but that was a way of trying to reduce the private car traffic and sort of influence people to use the public transport instead. The parallel sketch is sort of an architectural competition, but not quite. Usually the architect gets paid by, in this case, the builder or the client. For the architect is probably the builder or the project developer. And you get paid to do this sketch. So the city doesn't pay for it, for example. The builder pays for it, or the project developer, which is almost always the same as the builder in Sweden. And then you do a sketch for the entire site, whereas your client probably has one plot within the site, but you do a sketch for the entire site. And the other architects do the same. And then these are compared. And the city authorities have sort of opinion. I think this is probably the best one. We go for this as the overall design, overall master plans for this part of the project. And what happened is that builders get the chance to buy plots within this overall master plan, which is very sketchy at that time. It's just you can see the areas, and then they can have it one part. Mm-hmm. And then you start detail planning this sort of plot with perhaps 4 or 5 builders and their architects, depending. There are smaller and larger parts within the project, so it varies. Then each project developer and the architect start working with the individual building, and this is still a detailed plan phase. So it's a planning process which takes maybe 6 months, something like that. Legal, it can take a year because there's a lot of stages from a legal point of view. But the creative phase is about, I would say, half a year. And then you develop the project, actually. I mean, the individual project. You meet your clients, program what they want in terms of what type of flats, and if it's a residential project, for example. And also you cooperate with the other builders and the other architects, and it's quite governed by the planning architect, who sort of guide these projects in a certain direction. At least that has been the case in the Hamburg Sjöstad project, which you can see has an architecture which is there is an architecture in Hamburg Sjöstad, and that has been the result of one planning architect, Jan Inge, who sort of governed all projects in a certain direction. The result of the planning process is both two things, actually. The sort of the legal part, which is a map, which says exactly what you can build and where you can't build and how high it can be and how many square meters, etc., etc. That's one part of it. Another part of it is this, which is sort of a quality program for architecture or design within that overall project. And here you can find all the facades and pictures and how the projects are supposed to look, with entrances and windows and sort of overall character. And that is a way for the city authorities in this case to sort of ensure that the projects will be carried out in the next phase as it was supposed to be carried out in the planning phase. So you could say that this is almost a building permit drawings that you produce in this phase, although you can't have a building permit because the planning phase is not finished. But the detailing is almost like a building permit. And then you go into when the legal phase is over and this is taken by the city authorities and all the democratic process has been gone through, maybe 6 months later, then you can have a building permit, and then you start the real sort of, you make all the drawings to build by. This is just an example from one of the projects, and each project is sort of presented with a picture, part of the facade, part of the plan, and also a description of what the purpose is with it and what the aims and the goals for this project are from a design point of view, and mainly design point of view. And it's not sort of a legal document, but it's difficult to just throw this aside 2 years later and say that we will build something else. Everyone has agreed that this is a document that shall be used for this project within the overall Hamburg Sjöstad project. I think the developers are a bit critical because, of course, their freedom is sort of, let's say that they are designing something for a market that is, in the Hamburg Sjöstad project, the detailed planning process is sort of, the market is very close to the detailed process because it takes 1 year and then you start building, and then there's another year perhaps, and actually the flats are on the market. But in another process it can take years from the detailed planning phase is finished until the flats are actually on the market. And it's a bit difficult then if you sort of design a building very detailed in a very early phase. You can't adjust anything. It's very difficult to adjust things. And I know that most project developers don't like this sort of lack of freedom for the future, so to speak. And I think they're a bit irritated that they sort of has to do certain buildings. They might have preferred to make them more simple or with less detailing, etc. And now they're cornered in a way, and they don't like to be cornered. The city authorities by this can ensure a certain quality of the design and architecture, which is important, especially when you build in the central part of the city. So from their point of view, this is of course good if they can be sure that the project will not be deteriorated in the next phase, which can happen if you have a builder that is not so interested in the architecture or in the design process, perhaps. I think it has been a sort of an economic success for the city authorities as well. I'm not sure of that because I don't have their calculations, but I know that they sold the land for quite a lot of money. So I mean, they made a lot of money, I think, on this project as well. But of course, it's very difficult to balance their costs because who pays for the public transport, who pays for the, I mean, of course, that's somehow on the authorities' hands, and then to balance what are costs and what are revenues, and that is very difficult. But the land was sold for quite a high price, and I think it has been good business for the city authorities as well.